Ever heard of a classic film from 1954 about giant ants causing chaos? Imagine massive ants, larger than cars, rampaging through the city. It's a thrilling watch, but there's more to it than just big bugs. This movie has funny moments, shocking scenes, and even some sad parts. So, if you're curious to learn interesting facts, keep reading. Has this movie ever inspired or impacted your life? Maybe it sparked your interest in sci-fi or made you curious about creatures from outer space. Share your story with us. And hey, speaking of this film, which character was your favorite? Was it the brave scientist trying to save the day, or perhaps the tough military officer leading the charge against the ants? Let us know who you liked the most. We also want to hear your memories or personal experiences related to this movie. Did you watch it with friends on a rainy day? Or maybe it was a family tradition to watch it every Halloween. Share your stories with us. So, there you have it. This movie is more than just a tale about giant ants. It's filled with laughs, shocks, and tears, all wrapped up in one big package. Stay tuned for more interesting tidbits about this classic film. Just revisited a classic sci-fi film from 1954, and it's remarkable how it still holds up today. Watching it after more than a decade, I was struck by its tension, excitement, and intelligent script. The cast delivers solid performances, supported by future stars like William Schaller and Fess Parker. Despite criticisms of its special effects, the giant ants in the movie are oddly charming and sometimes genuinely frightening. Scenes like the first appearance of the ants in a dust storm and the battle in the Los Angeles sewers are particularly memorable. The film owes a debt to the beast from 20,000 Fathoms, but it stands out as the pioneer of the giant bug genre in the 50s and remains one of the best. Warner Brothers' biggest hit of 1954, it's a timeless classic alongside other sci-fi greats of the era. Rewatching it, I'm reminded of its enduring appeal and its place among the best of 50s sci-fi. Truly a masterpiece. Initially passed on by Warner Brothers due to lack of interest and found a home at Paramount after some negotiation. However, Warner Brothers' hesitance to back the film seems puzzling given the success of The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms the previous year. Despite Paramount's involvement, the decision was made to forego the intended 3D and color features, altering the film's visual presentation. The film was originally planned for 3D, incorporating effects such as close-ups of the ants and flamethrowers aimed directly at the camera. Although the second eye print was captured, it was never utilized, likely lost over time. Mistress Lodge mentions her family's early Sunday morning outings to the zoo, pony rides, and miniature golf. However, the notion of these attractions being open that early on a Sunday seems dubious. Despite initial doubts, the film emerged as one of Warner Brothers' top earners in 1954, particularly popular among couples frequenting drive-in theaters. The SS Viking incident referenced in the movie lacked historical accuracy, as there was no USS Milwaukee in service during that time. Instead, the last ship bearing that name had been decommissioned in 1949. In anticipation of Jaws' widespread release 2 decades later, them saw an unprecedented rollout with 600 prints and an extensive promotional campaign showcasing Warner's commitment to its success. In one scene, Dr. Medford recommends gassing the New Mexico nest during the day, assuming the ants would be inside. Yet, operations in Los Angeles happen at night, when ants would typically be outside. Even Jensen, the alcoholic patient, mentions seeing them at night. The depth of the New Mexico nest is speculated to be hundreds of feet. Ben, Bob, and Pat descend through several levels hand over hand with no gloves, a daunting task for even the fittest soldier. It's hard to believe they could scale back up with heavy backpacks. Walt Disney considered casting James Arness as Davy Crockett, but was impressed by Fess Parker as the crazy Texan pilot, so he chose Parker for the role instead. In a bit part, the late Leonard Nimoy portrays an Army staff sergeant who reads a news story off a teletype machine. Director Gordon Douglas once asked his editor about the film's look during editing. The response, as honest as 12-foot ants can look. The B-25H Mitchell bomber transporting the doctor's Medford was actually the personal transport for a 2-star general. Registered as N1E203, it also served as a camera plane for Catch-22. The pilot seen taxiing this aircraft in the opening scene appears to be Paul Mance, the legendary Hollywood movie stunt pilot. He met his fate filming the Phoenix P-1 airplane in the Flight of the Phoenix. And the film, The old man singing Make Me a Sergeant is portrayed by Olin Howland, who later played a similar character in The Blob, absorbed by the titular creature. The flamethrowers featured were standard World War II weapons, loaned by the U.S. Army. They were handled by actors who were veterans of World War II combat and had previous experience using them in battle. The initial message indicating Alan Crotty's location mentions a psychopathic hospital, which should have been psychiatric hospital, possibly referring to the psychopathic ward. However, Crotty doesn't seem to pose a threat to anyone. In one scene, Peterson asks Blackburn to call for fingerprint and mullage equipment used to capture anthrax. At another point, Sergeant Peterson examines money at a crime scene, but it's not realist currency due to legal restrictions during the 1950s. Instead, filmmakers turn to movie money, detailed by historian Fred Reed in his book. During battles with giant ants, Sergeant Ben Peterson and Robert Graham use military gear despite not being soldiers. Whitmore and Arness, who portray them, previously acted together as soldiers in another film, Battleground. In the film, James Arness played a prominent role, while his brother Peter Graves later starred in a similar movie called Beginning of the End. After martial law was declared, scenes depicted army trucks filled with troops speeding through the city. Notably, a movie marquee showcased 3 sailors and a girl. Olin Howland, known for his roles in classic 1950s sci-fi films, appeared as a resident in the hospital alcoholic ward who sings a memorable tune. Later, he portrayed the rancher who became the first victim in another sci-fi flick, The Blob. Following the helicopter reconnaissance, an Army officer examines 3D slides taken by Dr. Patricia Medford. The film originally aimed for 3D format, evident from the use of a stereo realist red button viewer. Surprisingly, no special effects personnel are credited despite the heavy reliance on special effects. The movie leaves unanswered questions about the ants' feeding habits in both the desert and Los Angeles. Despite the absence of reports of missing persons or livestock in the desert, and the vague reference to sugar disappearance in Los Angeles, the ants' feeding behavior remains ambiguous. It's unclear how they sustain themselves in these environments. When first released in Sweden, was given the peculiar title Spindlarna, translating to the spiders. Edmund Gwenn's cousin Cecil Kellaway played a similar role in The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Among them is cast. Notable actors who later gained fame in television series include Fess Parker, William Schallert, Leonard Nimoy, Dick York, and John Beradino. Features a talented ensemble cast, some of whom went on to become television icons. In summer 1974, Swedish TV aired the movie though, but with a new title, De Kalmar, replacing the original Swedish title, Spindlarna. Fess Parker, in a sci-fi swarm and horror horde by Tom Weaver, discusses his early career and involvement in them. Despite the movie's swift pace, the storyline suggests a longer passage of time, as Jensen had been admitted to the alcohol ward 5 months prior to the events depicted. This indicates that the narrative unfolds over a substantial period, contrary to the perception of condensed action.